All right, guys, so let's look at how this thing got wired up. Like I said, you put the components on, get your circuits branched out, then you can start wiring. So, we'll start at the top of the receiver. Power for the Fire Stick, power for the receiver. Runs down the right side. We catch the power from this amplifier, right? From the Marantz. Now, we keep running down. We catch the power from the DVD player. It joins the stream. When you're wiring, you want to wire only one way. I like to wire from the equipment back to the endpoint, which is, the power center or the rack. If you're going to go, structured wiring panel to equipment or equipment to panel, however it is, you have to go one way, so you kill the slack along the way. Because if you try to wire one way then the other, you're going to end up with slack in the middle. So I ran from the device, powered down, killing the slack along the way. And then I plugged everything in appropriately in its spots. And then you deal with your slack at this location. I picked this to deal with the slack because it's out of eyesight. It's behind the power center. No one's ever going to look. So we're keeping all our slack here. This is going to slide underneath. Just like these, all this extra cable that we didn't use, we're going to slide this right under the rack. We left it nice and looped up. The service loop for all the new cables we ran, we have a nice little service loop here. It'll slide right under the rack. So we did power on one side. Ran it all down, got everything plugged up, and then we started focusing on the data, which includes audio, video. So first thing I did was I ran the cables up to the appropriate length so I can capture all the amps with these audio cables. This was not planned here today. We were supposed to have a working circuits in place for us. So these we got in real fast, honestly. And it was only due to the structure we were able to run these all in one day. Most of the time that's not going to be possible. You're going to have to take a whole day to wire up the place, at least, pre-wire, then another day for device installation, then a third day for rack installation. However, due to the structure, we got it all wired up. So we put in our audio cables. This system's a little bit special because we're not using the front, left, right, left, center on the receiver itself. We're running we're running amplifiers, separate amplifiers from the audio video receiver. The reason is we get more power to the channels. Receivers are great and they put out enough power for most applications. This homeowner had 2 amps lying around. I said, hey, let's juice up those speakers. They're nice, big, hungry towers. Why not? If we want to crank, we can crank with these. So what we did was channel 1 and 2 on the Marantz are feeding the left and right speaker. Now, the third channel that's powered via the amp, the crown, we bridged. See, it has the option to do 2 channels here. However, I said, let's not power 4 channels and leave a 5th. I said, let's power the front array. So we had the left, right, and then let's do the center. So I bridged this amp and I put it into bridge mode. So we have 1 center channel coming out of this amp. So in this situation where you're running separate amps from the receiver, there's 2 things that have to happen. Number 1, well, let's break it down. So you have the signal or the low-level output and input, which would be your RCA. This is the example of this. So any audio-video receiver has the powered, most likely has the powered audio outs. These are amplified channels, but if you're using external amps, you're going to want to hit this array. You see front, it says center, it says surround back, height 1 and 2. So this receiver can output through all these pre-outs the same audio signal that's going to come out here. This is a non-powered signal made to go to an external amplifier. This is an amplified signal. All these screw terminations, these are amplified signals from the built-in amp. They're made to go right to a speaker. Speakers need a powered signal. They're electromechanical devices. They require power to output sound because there's a lot of energy that must be converted or transferred, but it really is a conversion because a speaker, you would call it a transducer. It's electromechanical transducer. A transducer is any device that converts one form of energy into another. So that's what a speaker essentially is. So a speaker needs a powered signal. So you can get a powered signal from here, but if you're running external amps, you're going to want to hit the RCA pre-outs or the low-level pre-outs from your receiver to the respective amplifiers. And you have to match the channel. So channel 2 right matches, the front right on here. As long as you have symmetry, as long as everything is plugged into where it should, you should get the right sound out of the right speaker when it's playing. We're gonna test tone that, make sure, you know, we'll use the built-in Odyssey stuff to tone each speaker, make sure that we're hitting the right channels. So on a normal condition, we'd be powering the speakers directly off the AVR. Just like these surrounds, you see the two surrounds are getting power right from the receiver. But today, we're going RCA out to the respective amps, and then we're powering from these amps to the channels that we want to, with this being left, right, and center speaker. This is the wiring, how it ended up. It's not the prettiest, but it will do. It will suffice. Again, we weren't expecting to run all new wires today, and I normally like to work under a rack condition, but there's nothing wrong with this. You know, if you have a budget and you meet that budget, that's really what matters. As long as you get what you want within your budget, don't go over the budget, don't kill yourself, don't spend outside of your means, and you have to, you don't have much budget left over for a rack, you can get away with one of these shelving units. They range from $50 to $200, the better ones being about $200 for this 4. They make a 5 shelf unit too, but this is essentially all you need, and it depends on the space where it's located. This room is pretty much going to be a listening room. Vinyl players go in there. We're going to have 2 separate tower speakers later on. So this rack is suitable for what we have. It accommodates all the equipment that we're installing, and it's really all we need. Aesthetics definitely play into this. If you want nicer looking wire runs, nicer looking wire management, or you don't want to see any of the equipment but still have ventilation for the equipment itself, get yourself a rack and do it right. The wiring takes a lot longer in a rack situation, but it gets done a lot nicer, to be honest. So while this isn't the best thing to look at, it falls under a much lower budgetary constraint. All these things are wired in. One of the last pieces of this is pushing the equipment back an inch or two to make it all perfectly centered, aesthetically in line. But before we do that, let's go take a look inside the theater. We rewired up all the speakers. We put banana plugs on everything. And what you see here is little extra wires hanging. This is the baling. So we're using an HDMI extender. Again, somebody on site drywalled over the HDMI, so we have to use an HDMI extender. The homeowner picked this up. He's having trouble with this one. I have yet to have a good experience with this company. This looks like Amazon stuff. I can never recommend Amazon stuff, especially with a device like this. So I figure it's in our best interest to at least test this one, see if we can get it working. If we can't, we'll swap it out with the new one, but that's why these wires are still kind of hanging. This is just a test subject as of right now. We still have to calibrate the audio. Steve, I think, is working on the video calibration right now. But let's go take a look in the theater and see where we're at in there. Aside from the baling or the HDMI extender, this rack's wired up. She's nice. Power on one side, data on the other. Take your time, do it right. So we have a ground loop. Ground loop is back. You guys hear that? Not sure if you can hear it, but the ground loop is back, and it's coming from that 1 amp. So we're gonna try to use a filter on that. Anyways, but honestly, Steve, you know that monster power center? That thing's generating some real noise. I have a feeling that it could be that monster itself. I'm gonna try to plug power outside, try to close out that ground loop. We're just gonna be tracing circuits for that ground, for this ground noise. But you see how we've transferred the noise? It's coming from that amp, because now we're running that amp, that same amp that was giving noise to this speaker is now coming through the center channel. I bridged it. That amp's a problem, but a filter should correct it. We'll see. So let's take a look. These are our new audio runs. I specifically chose to do it away from the outlet. We'll get this patched up and sealed. This is the old audio run where it came out here. The contractor will come in and seal this over and make it look like nothing ever happened. He'll paint the wire too. It'll be real nice. We'll tack it to the molding, or we'll probably go under the rug for this one. If he chooses to, he can pull it under. This was same day, like I said. But there's the center channel, bananas in, screw terminals down, everything's plugged in, terminated. Speaker terminated, fresh wire. Same thing here, our subwoofer's ready to go. Steve, the sub's gonna go right here. Grab Jeff when he's ready, because that thing is real heavy. And we'll get it plugged into this specific outlet. That's a 20 amp circuit just for that subwoofer. That speaker's wired in. Projector's on the way. This is our rear. New circuit right there. I like to go about a foot away from the outlets at least if possible to eliminate the noise factor. And that's our last speaker. So this is where it stands. The screen's up, she's installed. She might be level, I haven't checked yet. We're gonna calibrate this projector and projector's done, okay, cool. So subwoofer's gonna go in and then we can start tuning up the audio. The next step in this stuff is testing that baling as well as calibration of audio. Now, we'll first run an Odyssey setup. It'll tune the room for the room itself, and then we're gonna manually calibrate, or we're gonna redo or go over all the settings, the calibration settings, and we're gonna recheck distance as well as levels, because the Odyssey and other software suites for calibration usually fail in these two areas really hard. And specifically, levels and distance can make the system sound so much better. I mean, it is night and day, the sound you're gonna get when properly calibrated. So we're gonna hit calibrations next. The baling I know is working to some degree, so I guess we'll use it for the calibrating. And then we can focus on that last, changing out the baling. But we're gonna get a fully working audio system out of the AVR, the current speakers, and we have a little bit of work to do to eliminate that grounding, that grounding noise you guys may be hearing. I hope it's capturing by the mic. If not, I'll put it up right now. So that's what you hear when you have a ground or a noise problem, let's say. So that's what you hear when you have a ground or a noise problem, let's say.
Oh my gosh, is that the Dreamedia van in my neighborhood? What? Wait, Dreamedia, come back! We need you!